Okay, it looks like we are live. We are live, and hopefully, let me double check my audio settings. I should have done this. I should have done this before, but let's see. Black Magic, Black Magic. Okay, so that's all looking good. So we got about a minute and a half or so before the official live stream starts at 5 o'clock USA Eastern Time, and it's been a while since I have had a live stream. And we're going to talk about some things today. We're going to talk about some things. And as usual, my take is going to be a little different than a lot of other folks. And the topic is, let's see if I can pull this up here. Okay, so Bitcoin, Trump, and Caitlin Clark, number 22 of the Indiana Fever. What do these things have in common? What subject are we going to talk about? Think about that, folks. What are we going to talk about when we're talking about Bitcoin, Trump, and Caitlin Clark? What are we going to talk about? What do all of those things have in common? And like, comment, and share and subscribe because this is going to get censored. I'm sure this video, the powers that be are not going to want this thing to get out. Okay. So because Bitcoin's in the subject, Trump's in the subject, and Caitlin Clark is in the subject. And so those are three reasons right there why people are not going to want this information to get out there, folks. They're not going to want it to get out there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Bitcoin, and we have my computer says 4:59, just so we got 1 minute to the official start time of the show. And then we're going to start with Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about Trump, and we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark, and we're going to tie all of this together, all of these issues together. And I'll also bring you up to date on what's been going on with me because it's been a while since I've done a live stream, and hopefully some folks will come in live and be able to interact with the show. And if you're not live and if you're watching it later, again, like, comment, do the thumbs up, do everything you can because they're not going to want this content to get out there. I can tell you that right now. So let's start out with Bitcoin because, and this is also on the subject of Trump, they had the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and there were, I think, 23,000 people. I think 8,000 people watched Trump's speech. That's the number that I heard. And it was a very good speech. He said all the things that Bitcoiners should want to hear. He said he's going to support self-custody so that you can have Bitcoin in self-custody. He's also going to want people to be able to transact and use it without being taxed. And he also wants the United States to look at it as potentially a strategic reserve to have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So those are all very positive things. And the fact that he came to Nashville to talk to the Bitcoiners shows that Bitcoin is a thing now. Bitcoin is something that they cannot ignore. They're not doing this, out of the goodness of their heart, these politicians. They're doing it because they can't ignore it anymore. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also spoke, I think, the day before, and he was even more aggressive as far as all the promises he was making, what he would do if he were elected president. Unfortunately, he probably has a pretty small chance of that happening. So I don't think we're going to see any of that happen. But positive all the way around. There was a pump in the Bitcoin price. I think it got up to like 69,000. It has since pulled back. I think it's around 64,000 or something like that now. Actually, let me pull it up on my phone and see what it actually is. I'll use my Strike app to check. Oh, Strike is saying it's back up to 66. So it's been really volatile. Let me double check that. It's been really bouncing around the last several days, 66, 153. Okay, so, and it had gotten down to around 53,000. I bought some more. So, and then it pumped up prior to Trump speaking. I think got up around 68, 69,000. And then it pulled back some. And then it's been kind of vacillating after that. And this is normal when you have something high profile like this that happens, where you get a lot of speculators, right, that pile in and speculate, and then you get a little run up, and then they want to sell and take that quick profit, right? So this is normal volatility for when you're having like a big event like the Bitcoin conference, something like that. So the way I see it is, as far as Bitcoin goes, we are right on track with the 4-year cycle. We're really right where we should be. We actually got ahead of ourselves when we had that when it got up to around 73,000 or something a while back. We got ahead of ourselves, and then it pulled back, and then it's been kind of like sideways for a while. This is normal when you have the halving. We had the halving in April. It's normal for us to go sideways for like a year. And so really the big run up shouldn't start until next April, but I think it's going to start sooner than that this time for a lot of reasons. So I think Q4 going into September, October, November, December, all those months I think could be very good for Bitcoin. So stay tuned for that. Now, also on the subject of Trump, of course, you heard about the assassination attempt, and some whack job took a shot at him, and Barney Fife and all his buddies there in Pennsylvania couldn't stop it. So that happened. Kyle Jett's in the house. Hey, Craig, hope all is well. Been a while since the last show. Yes, it has been. And yeah, they're not pushing these shows out there, and they're censoring a lot of my stuff because they don't want to hear about Bitcoin. They certainly don't want to hear about Trump, and they don't even want to hear about Caitlin Clark. And we're talking about all three of those things in the live stream. So ask any questions you want, Kyle, and I will address them in real time. And so for those of you that didn't hear what Trump said, I'm going to play a couple of clips that I pulled out of his speech that I think are very good. So let me just play this real quick, and then we'll talk about it. Here are some of the key points that Trump made during his speech at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee on July 27.
This afternoon, I'm laying out my plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done. Incredible, because they know so much about it. They're so aware of it, much more so than people that are a little bit older. But I say this is the steel industry of 100 years ago. It really is. I think you're just in your infancy. I can see it happening. In just 15 years, Bitcoin has gone from merely an idea posted anonymously on an internet message board to being the 9th most valuable asset anywhere in the world. Can you believe that? Is that right? That's a big deal. Think of that. It's already bigger than ExxonMobil. Soon it will be surpassing the entire market cap of silver. It's not bad. How about gold? How about gold? Let's go gold.
So he goes on. I'm not going to play the whole clip because I might get a copyright takedown, but I put that whole clip on the channel here. So if you want to go and watch that before it gets taken down, it's up as a separate video. But he goes on. He makes some really key points about you'll be able to self-custody your Bitcoin. He also said that most people don't know about Bitcoin. So he basically said it's still early, right? Which he was very perceptive to say that, because a lot of people feel like, oh, I've missed out. It's already, $65,000 or whatever. It's too late, right? That is not anywhere close to correct. We are still extremely early. There's less than 1% of the people that can get involved in Bitcoin that are involved in Bitcoin. And on the ETFs, let me play this BlackRock clip real quick and see. And then I got a comment about the ETFs. So let's roll this one.
Well, I'll say a few things here. First, we welcome the developments that we've seen on the regulatory front. But let's be clear. It's been investor demand, and it was investor demand that got Bitcoin ETFs over the line. It's really about providing access, and from a regulatory perspective, we welcome the developments that we've seen.
So that's a BlackRock representative, and what's been happening with BlackRock is their inflows have continued, And even though there were a lot of outflows from GBTC, the inflows from BlackRock have more than made up for that. And that is continuing. Some people thought that, oh my gosh, this was an amazing launch. The inflows into the BlackRock ETF were incredible. And people were thinking that was going to wane. Okay. But it is continuing. The demand is continuing. And the BlackRock representatives have said most of the big financial advisors and other institutional organizations, they're not even in yet. They're doing their due diligence still. They say that most of those folks aren't going to start coming in until the fourth quarter of this year, maybe even the first or second quarter of next year. So they're saying that a lot of the inflows have yet to come, that we ain't seen anything yet. Okay, so that's very interesting information. Kyle Jets in the house, he says, have you heard anything from Steve lately? Some of the GS models have gotten really pricey these days. I did talk to Steve. I was asking him why he hasn't been doing any live streams, because he bought that extra space across from his main store and was setting up a studio and all that. But I guess he still hasn't gotten it the way he wants it or whatever. And so we haven't seen much of that. But so I did have a conversation with him. Didn't talk about any of the new GS models, but I did have a conversation with him. He's still doing it. Are you still holding GBTC? Excuse me. What about your new ETFs? Yes, I have IBIT. I have the BlackRock ETF. I'm loaded up on that in my Roth IRA, which I highly recommend people do that, because with a Roth, all your gains are tax-free. So of course, with Bitcoin, you're going to have tremendous gains, and all of those are totally tax-free. So as of now, that's the only way to get tax-free gains on Bitcoin, because if you have actual Bitcoin and you sell it and you have a capital gain, you got to pay capital gains tax on that. Now, Trump says he wants to get rid of that, but hasn't happened yet. So as of now, the only way you can get tax-free gains is to have one of the Bitcoin ETFs or MicroStrategy stock, that would work, in a Roth IRA. So I have my Roth IRA maxed out with IBIT. I sold the GBTC and I bought IBIT. So yeah, and see, I can do that in the Roth because I can sell the GBTC. I don't have to pay any capital gains tax. So that's the other cool thing about the Roth, is you can go in and out. If you want to trade, I don't trade, but if you want to do that, you could go in and out. Like if Bitcoin runs up real fast and you think it's going to pull back, you could pull out, you could sell your shares, and then when let's say it pulls back 5% or something, buy it back, and there's no consequence. There's no tax hit. So that's a really cool thing about a Roth IRA. Okay, so good questions there. All right, so so I think that we're going to see the inflows coming in, and then people ask me, with all that we know about Bitcoin, they ask me why it isn't going up now. Why do we have to wait? Why aren't we at 200,000 now? Why aren't we at $1 million of Bitcoin now? The answer is very simple. You've got three major cohorts, and I'll add a fourth now with the institutional investors, but you've got three major cohorts that have traditionally been in Bitcoin. You've got the OGs, the folks that got in early, that have a lot of Bitcoin, many of which mined it on their own PCs. They might have thousands of Bitcoin. Okay, so that's the early adopters, the OGs that have a lot of Bitcoin. A bunch of them sell when the price gets relatively high. When the price got up around 20,000 for the first time, a bunch of them sold some Bitcoin. When the price got up around 40,000, I'm sure a bunch of them sold some Bitcoin. When Trump gave his speech and all that, and it was up, I'm sure a bunch of them sold some Bitcoin. Because over time, they are slowly but surely cashing out their Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin is flowing into other hands, okay? So that's one cohort. Then you've got the speculators, the short-term guys, the guys that are buying it, waiting for a pump, and maybe selling it and taking a quick profit, right? And then you have the long-term holders. You have the strong hands. You have the folks that are buying it like Michael Saylor, right? They're like me, that are going to acquire the Bitcoin and just hold it. with a strong hand. Okay. With the exception of, like, for me, I'll occasionally buy a Bitcoin or two, set them aside. And when they hit a certain amount, like I told you, I've got when a couple of them, when it hits $100,000, I'm going to do something, right? But that's different. That's not my long-term holding. So you've got your long-term holders that the Bitcoin is slowly but surely moving from the first two cohorts, from the OGs into the long-term holders, and it's also moving from the speculators to the long-term holders. Okay. And so that is happening. That takes time for all that to happen. As that happens more and more, and the Bitcoin gets distributed into more and more strong hands, the price can only go up. Okay. So it's only up and to the right as that whole thing keeps happening. Right. But it's going to be a rocky road and the up and down as it goes that direction, because you're going to have these sell-off times when the OGs are selling off, and then the price pulls back and so forth, and then it goes back up again. So it's that's what's happening, is the Bitcoin is being slowly but surely distributed from those who are willing to sell to those who aren't going to sell, at least aren't going to sell anytime soon. Okay. Sammy's in the house. Can you borrow against BTC? There are companies that do that. It can be risky because some of them are kind of shady, and you got to give them custody of your Bitcoin, and then you borrow. And and like, for example, BlockFi went out of business, and that was a whole thing. So it's those services aren't really as mature as we would want them to be. Give it another 5 or 10 years, and then it'll be much easier to do that with limited risk, in my opinion. And like, for example, you'll be able to borrow against your shares in the ETFs, right? If you've got a bunch of Bitcoin in the ETF, you'll be able to borrow against that. And so that'll probably be a good way to do it. But right now, I would just focus on acquiring as much Bitcoin as possible, and then worry about the fancy things that you're going to do with it later on. That's what I would do. Sammy the bunny. Okay, so getting back to this, let's see, we got that. Yeah, getting back to this Bitcoin, Trump, and Clark. The second photo there, of course, him being shot. I got to talk about that because everybody else talks about it, and so I might as well talk about it. And I'm going to have a different take on this than a lot of other people. First of all, I've said for many, many years that the government, generally speaking, is not good at things. Okay. And the bigger the government, like the federal government, for example, that is huge right now, the bigger it gets, the least good it is at doing things. Okay. So, so let me give you a couple of analogies here. Okay. So I started Frederick.com in 1998. And I worked the site on and off for more than 20 years. And I made a good living off the site. And occasionally I might have one person working with me, like somebody in sales, one person, like me and one person, right? And we generated more visibility for Frederick County, more visibility for the businesses that were advertising on there, more views as far as the videos we did and the photos we did and the social media we did than the Tourism Council, the Chamber of Commerce, the local radio station, the newspaper, all of which have like large number of employees, right? And a big overhead. We did more, objectively speaking, if you look at the numbers, we did more than all of them put together. Okay. And there was one and maybe two people, right? So the fact that you have a whole lot of people doesn't necessarily make something more efficient. Let me give you another example. When I was a kid, I went to a church called Glenmont United Methodist Church for a while. I was a little guy. And they had one guy there that was the custodian, that cleaned the whole place, that took care of everything, that did repairs, that, he took care of the whole, and it was a big church complex. Had a big main meeting area. It had a whole nother building that had a whole bunch of like classrooms and other things. I mean, it was a fairly big complex. I think it's still there. One guy was basically in charge of all the grounds and the building, everything, the whole thing, right? If that was a government operation, they'd probably have 10 or 15 people doing the same thing, right? And they probably wouldn't be doing as good a job. All right. So, as far as like the attempted assassination, simple things like, okay, the guy spots the shooter on the roof with a rifle, and then he pulled himself up, and he's looking, and the guy pointed the gun at him, the local cop, and then he fell down, and so, okay, I know now there's a guy on the roof with a gun. If he doesn't have a radio that can communicate that directly with the Secret Service, right? That's insane. That's insanity. And also, if they didn't have a protocol that says, hey, if you see a shooter, if you see an imminent threat on the president, signal us any way you can. Pull your sidearm out and shoot 3 shots in the air. Boom, boom, boom. Right? And then the Secret Service would surround the president and protect him and get him off the stage, right? If he'd have done that, if that guy would have fired his sidearm 3 times, they would have had plenty of time to cover up, because there was about 20 seconds or so, maybe 25 seconds between the time he saw the guy with the gun and the guy with the gun started shooting at the president, right? So simple things that, because you're a big bureaucracy and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, you screw the thing up. All right. That's why this whole thing happened in Pennsylvania, is because they had too much. They had too many, quote, resources. And I heard I heard a little bit of the Senate hearing, or Congress, that they're grilling these guys from the FBI and the Secret Service. And Lindsey Graham's like, think big as far as what resources you need. Think big, right? In other words, he wants to throw more money. They've got a $3 billion budget, the Secret Service, and he wants to throw more money at it. Okay. As if that's going to fix the problem. That isn't going to fix the problem. Let's see. Here's another one. Lincoln, greenback, Kennedy, silver, Reagan, gold, Trump, BTC, all shoot by the cabal. Okay, I'm not sure what you're saying there, Sammy, but I put it up on screen. Okay, so here's the problem that we have in a nutshell, and then I'm going to get to Caitlin Clark, because that's an amazing story in and of itself. Bear with me here, folks, and ask any questions you have in the chat. So the reason that the political situation is so heated right now, and the reason, like, the Democrats are bat poop crazy and just will do anything to stop Trump, and have called him Hitler and all these other things, the reason people are so invested in all this stuff is there's a lot at stake. And the reason there's a lot at stake is the federal government is huge. And the federal government is a money machine as far as routing money to various people, okay, and various organizations. So they take the money from the citizenry and or create money out of thin air, and then they give it to their buddies, okay? And this is all a big industry. This federal government is huge. It's a behemoth, okay? So there's a lot at stake. So you've got things like this that happen, all right? If everybody was just living their life and doing their thing, and the federal government was very small, like it was supposed to be, like it was when the founders designed this country, they wanted the government to be very small and very weak, especially the federal government, because they wanted the states to do everything, right? And they wanted the federal government to be very limited in what it was doing. If it was like that, then people wouldn't really care that much who the president was. It wouldn't be a big deal, right? He wouldn't have that much power anyway. All right. And back in the day, you could go right up to the White House and go in and say hi and stuff. And there was no fence around it. When my mom was a kid, they'd go and play on the White House lawn. You know, it was no big deal. You didn't have a whole bunch of security and all that stuff. Now, again, you had like Lincoln got assassinated. And why? Again, because there was a lot at stake. The federal government was overreaching and telling the states what to do, and people didn't like that. Okay, so there was a lot of pushback, and therefore there was a civil war where a lot of people died, right? Because the federal government, that was probably one of the first instances of the federal government overreaching and being too big and too strong, and it caused the Civil War. Okay, so and this will repeat over and over again until somehow, some way, the big, huge federal government is cut down to size. Now, that's where Bitcoin comes in, because Bitcoin, none of my Bitcoin is going to go to fund big, overreaching federal government. I'm not giving any of it to them. Okay? It's not happening. All right? I'm holding my Bitcoin with a strong hand. All right? And the more people that convert their fiat into Bitcoin and then keep it away from the warmongering, huge, overreaching federal government, over time, the federal government will have to shrink. They'll have to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets to where it should be, which is very, 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 very small. Okay. Here's the Goths. Hello, gangster. All right, there we go. All right, so this is where, again, this is where I differ from all the other people that are talking about this thing, is they're not talking about the root of the problem. They're not talking about why is somebody willing to spend billions of dollars to try to be president of the United States, right? Why? Okay. And why do some presidents of the United States go into office not very rich, just kind of a little bit well off, and then they leave office and they're wealthy, right? How's that work? Okay. You've got to take the money out of politics, the big money. You've got to take the huge military contracts, all the lobbyists that are around Washington, D.C. Of the 10 wealthiest counties in the country, I think 8 of them are around Washington, D.C. And they're all lobbyists, lawyers, companies that are feeding at the government trough one way or the other, right? That are working the system. So they get money, they get rich, okay? So you've got to take those incentives away. You've got to get it so that people that that want to go to work in the government are doing that because they want to be a public servant, because they want to do something for their community, not because they want to get rich or help their friends get rich. Okay, that's the issue. And so I think we have to force that issue by us having sound money, Bitcoin, okay, and not playing in their fiat games. Okay, they can print all the fiat they want. That's not going to create more Bitcoin. That's only going to make Bitcoin more valuable. All right. So this is the thing. This is what we have to do. We need to focus on ourselves and building our own wealth that they can't touch, and watching them slowly but surely shrink down to size. Okay, so let's see, we talked about Bitcoin, we talked about Trump and why they want to kill him, why it's such a big deal. Okay. And by the way, I don't know Trump, but I've heard a lot of people that have met him and talked to him and so on. And they generally say that he's a really good guy and that, for example, he'll remember their names, or remember the names of their wife, the names of their kids, and he seems to be genuinely interested in the people he meets and talks to, and so on and so forth. Like, he's a real dude, okay? And he was already rich, so he doesn't need to go into government to make himself rich. So I think those are the kind of people, if we're going to have a big, powerful government, which I don't want anyway, but if we are going to have that, I'd rather have people running it that are already rich and successful, and maybe they're just there because they want to do the right thing. Okay. But the best case scenario is to make the government very small and very weak, so it's not an issue in any event. Okay. So, Sammy in the house, what happens if the grid goes down? It comes to be okay. So, nothing happens. It's not an issue. If you're talking about the internet going down, it would have to go down pretty much worldwide, because people are running nodes all around the world. And if we have a worldwide permanent outage, again, it would have to be permanent, because if it just goes down temporarily and then it comes back up, then everything's working again. You don't lose anything, right? But if it goes down permanently, if you have the internet go down permanently, we are going to have, within days, it's going to be Mad Max. Okay. And that's one of the last things we'll talk about, is the Lexus LX 470 vehicle. Okay. You're going to need that. Okay. And you're going to need your, things to help defend yourself. I'm not going to say what things you're going to need, but you're going to be able to defend yourself. You're going to have your own food stores. It's going to be Mad Max time. Okay. If the internet goes down permanently. All right. So that's that. Okay. Let's go to Caitlin Clark. Let me pull up this blog post I have about Caitlin. Okay. Okay, so what does this have to do with everything that I've been talking about? All right. Caitlin Clark, in this blog post, I say, may just be the greatest basketball player ever. She is often referred to as a phenom, or GOAT. Phenom, I guess you pronounce it, like phenomenon, right? And so, and I also go on to say is why Caitlin Clark might be the best basketball player ever. Okay. And then I've got a whole list of reasoning here. This is in a blog post. There's a link in the description so you can take a look at it. And then here's a screenshot from when she got the first triple-double for a rookie in WNBA history. She had 19 points, 13 assists, and 12 rebounds. Okay. And even after that, she's gone on to break all kinds of records. I mean, she's broken tons of records in the WNBA. She broke a ton of records in college. She is the best. Okay. And she's breaking all these records in the WNBA, even though most of the people in the WNBA hate her, because they're all woke LGBTQ, people. And she's a straight white female that has a great family and, great family background and all of that. They don't like any of that stuff. Okay. So they have been gunning for her from the first time she stepped foot on a court in the WNBA. They've been doing hard fouls against her. They've been double teaming her almost the full court length. They've been doing anything they can to stymie and stop and stifle Caitlin Clark. Okay. And she was the number one draft pick. And the reason she was the number one draft pick is because the Indiana Fever, who drafted her, were the worst team in the league. They got the number one pick. So she's playing on the worst team in the league. She's being double teamed. They're doing everything they can to stop her, and she's breaking records left and right. Okay. She's breaking records, all-time records for the WNBA, not just rookie records. She's also breaking all-time records. Okay. I'll go back here to the, I listed a few of them here. So this is the triple-double, and that was a rookie record. Okay. All right. So listen to this. On July 10, 2024, Caitlin Clark became the only player in WNBA history, as well as NBA history, to ever have 25 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, and 5 plus 3-pointers in a single game. Her actual stats were 29 points, 13 assists, 5 rebounds, 5 3-pointers, 5 steals, and 3 blocks. The only player ever to do that. Okay? Ever. This is her first year in the league. She's playing on the worst team, and she's being double teamed. Okay? So, okay, we're going to talk about the LX. Yes, that's next. Those WNBA stud wenches are bullies. Well, yeah, and she is schooling them. We're going to talk about the money too. We're going to talk about that in a minute. This is all tied together. Trust me, it's all tied together. But a junior high school boys team could beat the WNBA champs. Good point. But I think that Caitlin could actually play and be respectable in the NBA. That's how good she is. If you watch her passing and the way she ball handles and everything, give her another year, and I think she could actually play guard in the NBA. But anyway, I digress. She's broken all these records. They're having to move to bigger stadiums because she's bringing in all these fans. For all her home games and her away games, viewership on all the networks is way through the roof. Okay. She's got a huge contract with Nike. She's getting the money's starting to roll in for her. She is single-handedly turning the whole WNBA into a profitable venture. It's been losing money for years. It's been subsidized by the NBA for years. It's been losing money hand over fist. Caitlin Clark single-handedly is turning it into a profitable enterprise. And the WNBA is trying their best to stymie all that, to stifle her, to hold her down. She's doing this with all of them against her. So we're back to what I was talking about, where that church had one guy taking care of the whole church, where one guy did Frederick.com and did more to promote Frederick businesses and events and all that stuff than all the other organizations in place in Frederick County that were supposed to be doing that. Okay? Sometimes you don't need a whole lot of people, is my point. You bring somebody like Caitlin Clark in, she just does it. She puts the whole damn league on her shoulders and carries all of them. Okay? This is American exceptionalism. This is somebody working hard their whole life, learning skills and executing. Okay? That's what made this country great. Not a huge bureaucratic federal government. Okay? Individuals like Caitlin Clark getting out there and making things happen, okay, is what made the difference. Now, let me give you a few more data points here. Okay, this is all in this thing. Okay. On July 12, 2024, Clark set a franchise record for 7 assists in a single quarter in the WNBA. Then on July 17, she broke the WNBA record for most assists in a single game at 19. And this is with teammates that can't make a layup, okay? And that can't catch the ball. The previous record was 16. So that was a WNBA record, not a rookie record. The same game, she scored or assisted on 66 points, which is another WNBA record. Again, this is the worst team in the league she's playing on. Also, for the month of July 2024, Caitlin averaged 12.5 assists per game. This is yet another WNBA record. To cap it off, July, Caitlin's WNBA All-Star team beat the USA Olympic team, the team that left her off the roster. In the process, CC broke the record for assists by a rookie. She had 10 assists in that game. Okay, so they told her she wasn't going to be able to make it in the WNBA. The veterans that had been in the WNBA said she was going to have a rude awakening when she came in the WNBA. They said she had been playing with girls. Now she's going to be playing with grown women. right? In other words, she's not all that. She's coming in, she's breaking all their freaking records. She beat the Olympic team, which she was left off of because they said she wasn't good enough to be on the Olympic team. So she and a couple of her friends put together an all-star team and played them and beat them handedly. Okay, just up one side, down the other, just punched and slapped and bitch slapped them. Okay. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is American exceptionalism. And let me tell you that, mark my words, if she doesn't get hurt and she keeps growing in the game the way she is, because it did take her a little while to get acclimated to WNBA play, you know, all these hard fouls they do and everything, you know, they play like gutter trash. Anyway, she's gotten acclimated to it. Now she's kicking their butts. She keeps going like this, she could very easily be considered the best athlete of all time. Better than Federer, better than Jordan, better than all these people, better than Muhammad Ali. She could be the best athlete of all of them. She might end up breaking more records and setting records that can't be broken by anybody else ever. This is what she potentially can do. Okay? And this is what can be done with one person. One person. We don't need a $3 billion budget for the Secret Service to get their act together and to protect a protectee. Okay? It's insane. All right. I bet you I could hire Kyle Jett. I bet you I could hire Kyle Jett and give him a budget of $10 million. And I bet you he could keep Trump safe. If he had a budget of $10 million a year, right? And he could put together a team of probably a dozen or so top-notch killers, professional killers. And I bet you he could keep Trump safe. He might need to break some heads. They might need to get a little rough with some people. But I bet you he could do it. $10 million budget. Okay. Okay, let's get back to the comments here. Daniel Lee's in the house. She might not be the best yet, but people are resisting her as the face of the league. Well, yeah, they don't want her as the face of the league because she's not LGBTQ. Yeah, no shot. Sammy the Bunny says she has no shot in that. You're talking about in the NBA, huh? It reminds me of the Williams sisters, best woman, but couldn't beat the top 700 ranked man. Yeah, I hear you. I agree with that. But I'm telling you though, I don't know. I think if you put her as guard and surrounded her with 4 other really good players, I think she could do it. I think she could rise to the occasion because she used to play with guys when she was coming up because she had to, because the girls weren't good enough. So she had to play with guys. And I think if you've seen her passing and her court presence, the way she sees everything before anybody else sees it, right? And those bullet passes that she does, see, the reason she doesn't have more assists than she has, and she already has an insane amount of assists, she's breaking all the records, is you look at the compilation videos of her teammates missing passes. I mean, she'll pass a bullet, right? And it's right in their hands. And they're like, you know, they can't catch the damn ball. And then sometimes they'll catch it and they'll be in the perfect setup for just a layup. All they have to do is catch the ball and make a layup. And these girls can't make a layup, right? And so she doesn't get the assist, right? A, they have to catch it. B, they need to make the shot. And half the time they can't do that, right? So she's getting all of these assists with teammates that can't even catch the ball and can't make a shot after they catch the ball, right? So this is what I'm saying. It's freaking hilarious. The guys, Craig, if you get a Cybertruck and put Frederick area guide decals on it, Could it be a business write-off? Yes, it could be a business write-off, but I hate those trucks. They're hideous. I'll show you the truck to get here in a minute. That's what we're going to talk about next. Um, Wrench gang, Secret Service. Hell yeah. Tear those people up. You have to go in there and you might have to break some heads here and there. But I can see Kyle and his team step into this dude. This dude that was trying to crawl up the roof. I could see one of Kyle's guys like grabbing him by the nape of the neck and swinging him around and just throwing him off the roof. That would be hilarious. We'd have about 15 videos of some gnarly guy, right, grabbing this loser by the neck and just like whipping him around like this. Can you see the video now? Whipping him around a couple times. This, big guy, grabbing this guy, whipping him around and just throwing him off the roof. The poor guy goes flying through the air, and as he hits the ground, you hear a couple of bones crack, right? And then the guy's like on the radio, hey, we need an EMS, we need to take this guy to the hospital. He's been broken up a little bit. I think it'd be freaking hilarious. Okay, so let's talk about the LX. Oh God. Okay, here we go. Let me get a good picture here. A couple of good pictures here. Give me a second. Okay. All right, so the LX 470. This is a 2007 model, which in my opinion is the last of the really good Land Cruisers, if you will. This is basically a Series 100 Land Cruiser is what it is. And after this, all the Lexus vehicles started going slowly but surely downhill. Okay. They started getting unnecessarily complicated. They weren't as serviceable. And they weren't that much better as far as you had more amenities in the interior, but I just have an adapter that I can hook my phone to the sound system, and it all comes through the sound system, so I can play YouTube music, whatever I want. And so I don't need all that other stuff built into the car. And I saw a video on a new Tacoma and all the crap that's in it now. And I was thinking, when he was going through all that stuff, I'm like, my God, can you imagine having that thing out of warranty and having to take it to the dealer for some issue and how much it would cost? And don't get me started on that turbocharged 4-cylinder and how long is that going to hold up? This Lexus has the best V8 engine that Lexus has ever made. And the engine that's in this is better made than they had the same engine basically in Tundras, but it's not the same. The engine, if you watch Car Care Nut, he has a whole video on this. Everything in the Land Cruiser is upgraded. It's just better. The plastic quality, the plastic, when you open up the engine and you start examining things around the engine compartment, it's all different. It's all just built to a higher standard, okay, than the other Toyotas. And this 2007, I believe, is the last year where they were really, really super well made, okay? And if you get one of these that's in really great shape, and then you just service it, keep the fluids changed, keep it in great shape, I think you can run it indefinitely. Okay, I think you can run it into the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles. It's not going to be cheap to maintain, but you can do it. And you look at a lot of these newer vehicles, they don't even have color keyed mirrors. Like, look at this, the front fender, like the part that is bulging out on the fender, that's all metal. That's all part of the fender, right? It's not some plastic wheel liner, wheel opening molding around there. Sure, it's got a plastic cladding down the side and it's got plastic front and rear bumper. Okay, fine. But at least the fender isn't, and at least the mirror is color keyed and all that. I don't know. They're just cheapening everything up. I don't like it. I don't like what they're doing with all these newer vehicles. I know I sound like the old guy, get off my yard, but they're putting way too much crap in them. And they're almost designing these cars so that they're throwaway cars, so that you have them for the warranty period, and then you almost have to trade them in and get another one, because you're not going to be able to afford to maintain it once it's out of warranty. And this Lexus is a 2007. It's going on 20 years old, and in a couple of years, it's going to be 20 years old, and it's going to be fine. It's still going to be running great. My Prius is a 2004, and it runs great. It doesn't have any issues, right? It's not that complicated. Even though it is a hybrid, it's still a fairly straightforward system, and it just works fine. It was built to last. Okay. All right, let's get back here to the comments. I looked at the new Lexus GX, very nice. Yeah, I would pass on the new GX. Again, I don't like the way they're cheapening up a lot of things on it. If you're going to get a GX, I would get one, 10 years old. Get one with the V8, the older one, and get a real nice one. But I would step up to the LX. I don't know why you'd buy a GX. Just buy the LX and be done with it. Buy an LX, I mean, you could buy the LX, what's it, the 570, the newer one. They're okay, but they've got some issues. No, I would not even consider the new one. It's got a lot of issues. And again, it's one of those you would not want to have out of warranty. Craig, when's the last time a U.S. automaker made a decent truck? Probably around 2007. Probably around then. All the cars have gone downhill because of the emissions requirements. See, what they're doing is the 3 years and done. Yeah. I had the 08 GX, sold it, but it was great. Yeah, that would be a decent vehicle. That would be still decent. Here's the thing. What they're having to do, see, again, we're back to the government. We're back to big government is not good at things. Government is not good at things, okay? They're not good at building cars. And that's what the government is doing right now. They're sticking their nose in, and they're telling all these auto manufacturers how they need to build their cars. Because, hey, we need you to get more gas mileage. We need you to do this. We need you to do that, right? And they put all these requirements on them. And manufacturers like Toyota try their best to maintain quality, but they end up putting plastic valve covers on them. They end up doing all these things. They end up putting a turbocharged 4-cylinder in it. They do all these things to try to meet these requirements. They're not doing it because it's making a better vehicle. See, back in the day, Lexus was making cars and trucks, as best they could. And the regulations weren't that stringent. They weren't that bad. They were able to work around it, and they were able to still make a really good car. And again, I think the last of them were around 2007. The GX maybe a little later than that, but in that time frame was really the last of them. And now it's gone. The last 2 or 3 years, it's really going downhill. Really, no. I used to always, back in the day, I used to always buy like a really nice luxury car that was 10 years old, that was a little old lady car. Like, for example, I had a 72 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham that was 10 years old. So I had it in 1982. Are you with me? I had a 1975 Mercedes 300D that I had in 1985. Okay? So after 10 years, they've done almost all their depreciating, and if you get a really nice one, they're fine, right? You can drive them indefinitely. Okay, we'll go through these, and I'll show you a couple of pictures. Craig, when was the last time you used to make it? Okay, we talked about that. Talked about that. Talked about that. Car Wizard. Car Wizard says never buy a new diesel because the emissions crap. Yes, they've screwed up all the diesels. The newest diesel I would buy is like around 2002, I think was the last year before they started putting all the crap on them. So you got to go back to like 2002 on diesels. Older car models should be grandfathered in for constant production. Imagine if Toyota could still produce. Yeah, no joke. Okay, so let me show you what I mean about the Cadillac. See if I can pull up a picture. You guys think I'm making this stuff up. I'm not making this stuff up. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Your photos. See if I can find it here. All right. All right, so here's a perfect example. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Go back here. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. Okay, whoa. All right. Okay, so there's a 1977 Cadillac Fleetwood limousine, 7-passenger sedan, actually. And that was a 1977. I had it in 1987. Okay, 10 years old. It had about 50,000 miles on it. It was like mint condition. Okay, ran great. Used it to tow my my jet boat. And behind that was a 63 Chevy sedan that I also had with factory air conditioning. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Here's a 1965 Cadillac Fleetwood that I had. That one was probably 15. That was a 65, 75. I probably had it around 1980-ish. Or 1978, I think, was when I got that. So it was a little over 10 years old. And that one also had very low mileage. I think that one had like 40,000 miles. That was a Fleetwood with the 4 power vent windows in each corner. Okay. And this, unfortunately, photo's a little blurry. This was a 1969 Eldorado. Let's see if there's another picture of it. Yeah. That I bought and drove out to Oklahoma and sold it at an auction. That was a 69. I bought it in 1979. That car had 23,000 original miles on it. Okay. There's the limo again. There's the 65 Caddy again. There's the car at the auction being sold. We got $5,600 for that. I paid $3,000 for it. So that's what you do. You buy a really good car that was good in the first place. You buy it 10 years later. Okay. And if it's a luxury car, especially a sedan, it loses a lot of its value. Right. This doesn't apply to like a Corvette or some sports cars, stuff like that. But a luxury sedan in particular loses a huge amount of its value in 10 years. And if you find a garage kept, one owner, super nice version, and then just go through and service it up, you can drive it and enjoy it. I also had a 68 Pontiac. Let me see if I can find that. That was really neat. 1968. See if I can find it. If I get lucky here. Oh, here it is. This doesn't have the greatest rear end, but this is a 68 Bonneville Brougham 4-door hardtop. It had 22,000 original miles on it. It was fully loaded. It had the 428 engine. It got about 8 miles to the gallon. It was fully loaded. Now, it did have like the seats were almost like a silk fabric. It wasn't leather, but it was super comfortable seats, and it had every option. And that was in 1968, and I had it in 1978. Again, 10 years old, but I found it and only had 22,000 original miles on it. Drove that for a while. So, let's see what else here. The Carnut H twin turbo V6. Yeah. Turbos are a problem. Let's see here. Would love to ask the car Carnut what he would buy. He is buying stuff new. That's what surprises me is he is still buying cars new. Of course, he's making a bunch of money off of his YouTube channel and everything. And I'm sure Toyota probably gives him a super deal on those cars if he does get one new. But he has bought a couple of new Toyotas. But my guess is he isn't going to keep them past the warranty period. And of course, if he does, he can work on them himself. But some of those, I don't even think I'd wish working on those on him even. He did his wrap-up video on that 600,000 mile LS 430 that he did a complete restoration basically on, and he spent like 60 grand on it. And for him, that is justified because I'm sure he probably made that much on all the videos he did about it. He's probably made 60 grand, right? That whole project is probably making him money. So that's not an issue. But for an average person to do that, that would be stupid. You would be much better off finding an LS 430 with like 20,000 original miles on it that was always been garage kept, that was like new, and then just take it to the car care nuts and say, hey, service it up, replace any bushings that need to be replaced, change all the fluids, whatever it needs. And I'd never really heard him talk that much about the engine, that 600,000 mile engine in the LS 430. I'm curious as to really the condition of that. Is there any blow by? Are there any issues with that after 600,000 miles? He didn't talk much about that. The transmission he replaced. Okay, I got one more comment here. We're going to wrap this up. Put any more comments you want in the chat because we're going to wrap it up. Craig, you're so right about Tudor. I bought a Black Bay and had water intrusion after a day. Oh my gosh. I subjected my GS to the same treatment for months and no troubles. Yeah, I would pass on the whole Tudor thing. I still like my gold 002, my gold Grand Seiko and the diver. Where's the diver? It's still doing great. So yeah. Let's see here. He did a lot of work for cosmetic issues. Yeah, but he did a lot of mechanical stuff too. I mean, pretty much the whole front suspension, the steering rack, all the front and rear suspension. I mean, he did a ton of work on that thing. And my God, the interior, taking that whole interior out of that thing. I mean, that's total insanity. I would rather have an all original garage kept 20,000 mile example. I would just feel better about that. I would feel better if it was all original, and still in great shape, which it would be if it was kept out of the sun and kept in a dry garage. That preserves cars. It preserves the rubber. It preserves everything. I've bought, and people say, well, you get a low mileage car like that, it's going to have all kinds of problems. It depends. It depends. I have bought super low mileage cars many times that were like 10, 15 years old, sometimes 20 years old. If they were maintained decently and if they were driven easily, like a little old lady would drive, they're usually okay. I have not really had problems with them being all gummed up and stuff like that. Even back in the day with the carbureted cars and bad gasoline, if they sit a lot and stuff like that, it was never that big a deal. We would always just like put a bunch of fresh gasoline in and run them and give them a good highway run. And usually they were good to go. We never had that much of a problem with ultra low mileage vehicles. Let's see here, Sammy. Will you be doing more live streams going forward? We'll see as the opportunity presents itself. How's Bree doing? She's still down in Miami. She's having a good time. She's a whole coiner, so she can just kind of relax and sit on that coin and live life. And I'm sure she'll be well set in 30 or 40 years. Because she's got a strong hand. She's not going to sell any of her Bitcoin. Let's see here. Heard you mention something about skin cancer in one of your political views. Yeah, I had a big piece cut off of here. It was nasty, and a piece cut off of here. See the scar? See the scar there? Yeah, they. And this is another thing. I had a great dermatologist here in Frederick. Great dermatologist, and he closed his practice because of all the paperwork and all the BS, all the bureaucratic government BS. He straight up closed his whole practice and retired early. Then I had to go to a new dermatologist. And the previous dermatologist had cut off a few things here and there from, I took in too much sun when I was younger, right? And so you start having these things, pre whatever they are. They're not really melanoma, but they're things that need to be removed because they could turn into that. Anyway, never had anything really major. So then I go to this new dermatologist, and there's the round thing on my chin, and he says, "Oh, we better take that and test it." So they scrape it off and they send out and tell, "Oh yeah, it's pre whatever, da da da. We got to cut out, And so they cut out like almost a quarter size hunk of my chin, and then had to stitch it all back together. It was nasty. It was a mess. And they did the same thing on my arm. And I'm like, maybe it needed to be done, but I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. I didn't know this guy. I hadn't used him before. He came highly recommended and all that, but does he need money to send his kids through college? Now all of a sudden I went from having some things removed here and there that were fairly minor, that never needed anything major cut out, that he always would take off a little something, send it out and test it, and it would come back and he said, "Oh no, you're fine. We got it all. No big deal." It was never a big deal. Okay. And then I go to this new guy, and all of a sudden I got two things that need to be cut out like big time. I mean, they cut out. I had no idea how much they were going to cut out, right? It was freaking nasty. Folks, stay out of the freaking sun. I know. I used to love it. I played tennis a lot in the sun, volleyball in the sun, all that. Okay, fine. Be careful out there, folks, because it's not fun having this shit cut off. Excuse my French. But he got it all, and he said, "I don't really have anything else right now that I have to worry about." And so the mayor of this town, the mayor of Thurmont, he's got major melanoma. I mean, he might end up dying. I mean, he's all screwed up. He used to always work outside without a hat, and he's got it all on top of his head. He's all effed up. So Bria's left the nest. Bria's in motion. Yeah, Bria's making things happen. You got to move to Sarasota. Yeah, get back in the sun again. Yeah. I'll be careful with the sun going forward. I'll be out in the evening time more and stay in the shade and wear that hat that Carlos got me, with that Panama hat with the nice brim. So I'm going to be somewhat careful. Okay, we're going to do one more comment here. They ain't making money unless they're cutting. Yeah, no joke. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. We're going to wrap this puppy up. Oh, we better go back to the time there. We're going to wrap this puppy up, and hopefully we'll get some likes, comments, and shares on this video so that they won't bury it. I think they're going to bury it given the subject matter, but we'll see. And I'm still on track for when Bitcoin hits 100 grand. I'm going to buy a couple of things that are on my list, and I'll keep you posted on that as we get closer to that. Might happen later this year. My target was November. I think we might hit $100,000 Bitcoin by November. And I've got 2 extra Bitcoin that I purchased that I'll be able to sell to do what I need to do. These are in addition to my cold storage Bitcoin that I will never sell. There you go, MAGA. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.